want you to realize that it's possible to feel uncomfortable or even scared, and to show up as yourself in business and online anyway. You're listening to the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Gillis, copywriter, word magic maker, and owner of What Sarah Said. On this podcast, you'll feel empowered to show up online in a way that has you saying, "That's so me." Let's get started. Welcome to the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Gillis, and I'm logging some on-call hours today to share why the purpose of this podcast, to empower women like you to show up authentically online and in life, is such an important mission on my heart. But to tell this story, we need to move back in time a bit. In May of 2021, I walked away from my job as a middle school gifted education teacher, working in the school district that grew me up. It was a wonderful experience. I truly loved working with 7th and 8th graders who, throughout the course of our musical history unit, grew to love Hamilton almost as much as I do, and who, during our Mars exploration unit, constructed plans for a collaborative, communal life on the Red Planet. Before I said yes to teaching middle school, I was laid off from a nonprofit organization due to a lack of funding in the wake of COVID. And so after a week of wallowing in uncertainty, I decided to launch my business, What Sarah Said. I've always been a storyteller at heart, and I felt called to put my love for stories to work for small business owners who, especially during the pandemic, were eager to stand out and show up authentically online. While I built my copywriting business in the wake of that layoff, I was hired at the middle school. And I never expected my copywriting business, What Sarah Said, to take off in the midst of the pandemic, no less. But that's exactly what happened. What Sarah Said grew to a point where I couldn't continue to grow and serve my clients well and my students well unless I made a choice, unless I left teaching behind. And leaving this job was a truly difficult decision, and it was one that took a lot of courage. The story, though, that hardly anyone knows is that leaving behind my teaching career was far from the most difficult or courageous decision I've ever made. Another choice I made was far more difficult, and it was one that I kept hidden from the world until late last year. In May of 2018, my oldest son, Lionel, graduated from kindergarten. And I don't appear in any of his kindergarten graduation photos because I wasn't mentally well enough to be there. 6 days after I checked myself into the hospital in 2018, I returned to my life, and thanks to countless doctors, a new medication for anxiety and depression, and regular therapy, I felt and still feel grateful to be alive. I have never considered myself a brave person, and I'll be honest with you, making the decision to ask for help certainly didn't feel courageous in the moment. For years, I felt like I couldn't share this fundamental struggle within myself, a battle that I've waged privately since 2010. It's one thing not to feel worthy of showing up as yourself online, but it's another thing entirely to prevent yourself from pursuing an authentic life. And that's what I was doing. But when I left teaching behind in favor of business ownership, and when I decided to run a business that is built on the beauty of sharing stories, I truly felt called to stop hiding and to show up as myself, not only in my business and online, but in my life. And since becoming a business owner, I've told myself that Whenever something scary comes in my path, I won't hide. Instead, I say yes to it. I've got to say, showing up as myself in my business and in my life has been the best darn experience. The Sarah from 2018 would never have thought that showing up authentically in life was possible. And the Sarah from now, from 2023, is so glad that she's making it happen. Showing up as yourself online is a choice, and making that choice takes courage. I've got a feeling that some of you listening to this podcast have convinced yourselves, like I did, and wrongly, I might add, that no one really cares who you are or what you have to say. I'm willing to bet my boots that some of you have decided that you're just not good at showing up online. You've never been a word wizard. You have a hayfield full of passions, but no defined direction. And maybe you feel like you're too busy battling algebra homework to take up arms against the Instagram algorithm. But instead, I want you to realize that it's possible to feel uncomfortable or even scared, and to show up as yourself in business and online anyway. To those of you who are hesitant to take up space, let me tell you this. I am proof that change happens on the other side of discomfort and fear. And for some of you, maybe that change starts by listening to this podcast and taking small, little by little steps to show up as yourself, not just in business, but in life. Because the world is eager for what you've got to share and say, my friend, even if it's scary, especially if it's scary. When my clients are struggling to show up as themselves, I like to ask them, what can be gained if you show up authentically as you are? If you share your heart for your work, if you share the value of your product or service, if you tell your story? And what is lost if you don't? I ask myself these questions too, and here's my answer. By showing up as I am, I'm giving you, my audience, my client, the permission to show up too. And that's a value that every one of us can bring to the table. Until next time, this is your copywriter on call, signing off. Thanks for listening to the Copywriter on Call podcast. If this episode has you feeling all sorts of inspired to show up as yourself online, click that subscribe button so you don't miss my stories or practical advice to help you express your quirky, vulnerable, and authentic self online. Chat soon.